G'day guys, I'm D-Mac from NBA Fantasy Bible, and along with me is Kayla Fonte, and together we're Between Two Hoops. Kayla, how you going?
I'm doing well today. How are you?
Doing really well. Hectic week. We've got about a week until the start of the NBA season, which is super exciting. Today we are talking about busts, everyone's favorite subject. And I just want to preface it by saying that when we talk about busts, it doesn't mean that we think they're bad players or bad fantasy players even. It's more the fact that we think they're being overdrafted and perhaps their ranking or ADP is too high for our liking. So we'll take you through it one by one, but shall we get into it, Kayla?
Let's do it.
All right. Starting with Mr. Joel Embiid. Obviously, we've heard a whole heap about him over the last few days. It's looking like he will be missing all of his back-to-backs this season, which pretty much rules him out of, I think, 15 or up to 15 games straight off the bat, which is really disappointing. The reason why he's on our bust list is not just because he's a constant injury threat, but also because of those back-to-backs. But also look at that Yahoo rank at 5. That's way too high. Even coming into this season, we thought he's borderline a first-round guy. Yes, we know that he's probably a top 3 guy per game, maybe top 4 now that they've got some extra talent in Philly. But now that he's going to be missing these back-to-backs, I think he needs to be pushed out to the second round. What do you think there, Kayla?
He's not someone that I would personally draft, but yeah, I agree. 5 is way too high. In most of the leagues that I've done, I've never actually seen him go at 5. It's more so in the back end of the first. But the news yesterday that he probably won't ever play back-to-backs again is really discouraging. In the long run, it could probably help him stay healthy. But like you said, the 76ers have 15 back-to-backs this year. So that limits him to 67 games if he plays every other game this year, which probably won't happen with injury
Probably
concerns,
won't happen.
rest. Exactly. Right. So the odds that he can play that much, I mean, it's hard to draft him. Like even in roto leagues too, like I'd feel a little bit more comfortable there, but even then he's not someone that I'm targeting in drafts.
Yeah, and even in the second round, I think he's touch and go. There's probably a few guys in that second round that I'd rather have and have more confidence in longer term as well. We know that Philly in the front office really want to just conserve him, Paul George, to a lesser extent Tyrese Maxey for the playoffs because they really need to start performing. This is coming to the end of the process window, I guess, and they're in that championship window. So they need to look after their superstar. So it doesn't bode well for his regular season value. Moving to the next one, Paul George, Kayla.
Yeah, for this one, it's the same kind of thing with Embiid where the injury concerns are still there. And he's on a new team now where there's also Tyrese Maxey that he has to compete with. It's probably going to be George and Maxey fluctuating between being the second and third offensive option, but it's just those injury concerns. They're prioritizing guys like George and Embiid for the playoffs, which makes it really hard to draft them and take that chance.
Absolutely. You look at that Yahoo rank on, 27, that's a lot of value. But even today, we heard that he hyperextended his knee. People heard that news. We're not sure of the severity of that injury at this stage. But again, off the back of the Joel Embiid discussion, perhaps there's some question marks around Paul George playing those back-to-backs as well. He could be limited. Look at that ranking, the category league ranking from last season. I don't think he gets anywhere near 16. Points league is a lot less valuable. So the ADP in ESPN sort of lines up with what he did in points leagues last season. But the ADP for Fantrax and Yahoo, again, that is a little bit too high for me now, knowing that he could be missing some of those back-to-backs moving forward.
Yeah.
Next one, Ant Edwards. I know people are hyped about him, and he's going in the first round, and that's reflected in his Yahoo rank of 10. ADPs are very high as well, particularly in ESPN, where he's got an ADP of 9. For me, he just hasn't shown that ability to be a first rounder. Yes, Cat has now moved away from him. We've got Julius Randle on the team now. And that was always my thinking. If and it was going to elevate to the first round, he needed Cat to go away. I'm still skeptical of whether or not he's a first rounder. And yes, there's always going to be question marks around some of these guys in the second round, but I think that jump up is going to be too far for him to reach. What do you think?
Yeah, the thing is too is that his role this year is pretty much the same as it was last season. And even looking at the stats here, he finished 39th in Cats leagues and 25th for points. So how is it that he's going in the first round at about 10?
Yeah.
Especially when we've never seen him really produce that kind of value. And in most of the mocks that I've seen, he's been going in the mid to first round, which is baffling to me. And I consider myself higher on Anthony Edwards than other analysts are. At the very most, I would draft him like late first round and maybe a 12 or 14 teamer, but I would feel a lot more comfortable in the second round.
Yeah, I'm probably a lot lower than a lot of analysts, and we've seen him go in analyst drafts, real drafts, and mock drafts in that first round. And just for me, he's not proven yet. But perhaps with Cat now gone, he can elevate to that level. I'm just yet to be convinced. But I could be eating my words come end of season. Next one, Paolo Banchero.
So I really like Bankero's game in points leagues. So this is more from a category league perspective because I had him in his rookie and sophomore years, and I was happy with his value that he produced for points. But obviously, the format is a lot different between those two leagues. So for Cats leagues, it's the low efficiency, low defensive production, the high turnovers. That's what really causes his value to decrease. So to see him going that high in the top 40 is nuts to me. I think he's closer to like a 6th, maybe 7th round pick. What are your
I
thoughts?
agree. That 9-cat ranking from last season of 154, that's traditional 9-cat. You probably need to look at that with a grain of salt. Look at -1 rankings. It's a little bit more reflective of his value. But you're right. I think that Yahoo ranking of 39 is probably more reflective of points leagues and that lack of efficiency. We haven't seen him shoot well from the field or from the free throw line as of yet. Again, he needs to convince us otherwise. But yeah, for me, he's, like you said, more like a 6th round sort of player. Next one is one of your old guys, Pascal Siakam. What do you think about Pascal this season?
Well, last year his fantasy ranking just really took a hit and some of his numbers declined too. He finished 70th after ranking in the top 51 for the past few years, so that was really disappointing production to see. He's entering his first full season with the Pacers, but I just don't see the defensive stats rising that much. And he's also been struggling from the free throw line and beyond the arc. He's sliding in a lot of drafts from what I've seen, but I still wouldn't draft him top 50. He's also looking more of like a 6th, 7th round guy for me.
Yeah, similar to Banchero, I think he's more suited to points leagues as well.
Yeah.
So that 49 rank in Yahoo is probably about right for points leagues. But it will be interesting to see how he gels with the Indiana team and see how that impacts Halliburton, because we saw down the stretch last season that Halliburton's value dropped off. Perhaps that was related to the hamstring injury, or perhaps that was still trying to find that synergy and chemistry with Pascal Siakam. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see that dynamic moving forward. Next one, Nikola Vucevic. Thoughts on him?
He's getting older, so he's starting to fall a bit in terms of production and overall fantasy ranking. There's also a lot of uncertainty with this Bulls team, with what's going to happen to Vucevic, with Zach LaVine. It's very likely that they could be traded this year. Or the other possibility that I see is Jalen Smith eating into some of his minutes. So that's definitely something to watch out for, but I wouldn't be drafting him as high as I did in previous years.
Yeah, and we spoke about this on previous episodes. This Jalen Smith is one of my sleeper picks for this season for this very reason. I think Nikola Vucevic's minutes come down. I think there's a real possibility that down the stretch, depending on how Chicago go, but I can't see them being a top tier team this season. And like you said, there's always going to be rumors around trading Nikola Vucevic, trading Zach LaVine. I do like Jalen Smith, and for the very reason that I like him, I don't like Nikola Vucevic. So it will be interesting. I know he's still very popular in those mid rounds, particularly those that like to punt blocks and still want those big man stats as well. You get that efficiency from Vucevic. I just don't think that he's going to be on this Bulls team for much longer. Perhaps if he does get the trade, that does actually increase his value, but it remains to be seen.
Mhm.
Cam Thomas. Let me take you through Cam Thomas. I know he's been extremely popular with a lot of analysts. He's got a great opportunity to really thrive this season, but it's the Nets, and the Nets are tanking, and they're tanking for flag, and it's going to be a hard tank this season. And Cam Thomas is going to start the season really well. Yeah, he's going to put up fantastic numbers, fantastic scoring, good threes, decent from the free throw line. they're pretty empty. A lot of popcorn stats, but is he going to get those defensive stats that you need in a category league? I'm not so sure. Points league, fantastic pickup. You saw at during last season, ranked 78th, but that doesn't take into account how well he finished off the season as well. So points league, I'm happy to take him. In a roto, I'd be very comfortable picking him up in a 9-cat roto. But in just a head-to-head, I still have my doubts around a lot of the Brooklyn players. As I said, with that tank going to be strong this season. Cam Thomas, not for me at 67. What do you think about that, Kayla?
I definitely think the bust pick more so applies to category leagues. Like you said, they're going into full tank mode for Cooper Flag, so it's likely that he could sit some time in the end of the season. But still, like for points leagues, I'd feel a lot more comfortable taking him at around that 60-ish, 70 mark than I would in a Cats league. And it's also, like you said, he doesn't give you those defensive stats. He is not a versatile player. He will give you the points, the threes, and solid free throw percentage. But aside from that, you're not getting much else, which really hurts his value for a Cat league.
Yep, agreed there. Next one, Colin Sexton.
Yeah, I think he's someone who I was a little bit higher on earlier, but now I'm starting to fall a little bit on him. He has made tremendous leaps in his overall game, and he's coming off a really solid last year. But I think that 76 is too high for him. From what I've been getting him at, he's been closer to like 90-ish and 100, even sometimes outside of the top 100. I don't think you have to reach for Sexton, and he should be able to fall to you at around that mark.
Yeah, and the ADPs, the current ADPs are reflective of that. I just think Yahoo's gone really, really aggressive on him. So just be mindful if you are on Yahoo drafts, don't get him. You don't have to get him that early. And I think you may be getting value, and that's probably going to be okay come end of season. But for you to be successful and winning your championship in your fantasy league, you want to be finding value as well. So getting him at around 76, I think you're just chopping off all of that value as well. So yeah, like you said, around that 90 to 100 mark is a real sweet spot for him. Next is Brook Lopez. Now, I have my real doubts around him this season. I think his minutes are going to come down. Look at that ranking from last season in 9-cat 40. I don't think he's going to be able to replicate that. We sort of saw a decline come end of season last year. I think it's going to be full swing this season. And I think that Yahoo rank of 85, it's okay. It's all right. But again, a lot of his value is tied up in blocks. And if you don't need those blocks, I don't think he's a draftable guy. Thoughts
Yeah,
there,
and that's the
Kayla?
thing. His numbers really don't jump off the page in any category aside from blocks. Um, his fantasy ranking also dropped a lot from the 2022-23 season, and he's just managing to hang in there for top 50 value for 9-cat leagues. He's also almost 37 years old, so we could start to see those minutes trending down and his production as well.
Yeah, and perhaps there's an opportunity for Giannis to play more small ball 5. There's still a lot of life left in Bobby Portis as well. I just don't know what they're going to do with Brook Lopez. I think maybe they're going to, similar to how we spoke about earlier with the Philadelphia 76ers, maybe they're going to conserve him for a playoff run as well. So it just doesn't bode well for his regular season fantasy value. His teammate Chris Middleton, starting off the season injured, ankle surgery. That Yahoo rank of 92 is still too high for me. It's too aggressive. And I think his ADP for Yahoo is probably more reflective of his value. But again, I'm out on him. I don't know if I can draft him. And I did draft him a few weeks ago in a draft only league, an industry draft only league. And I regret it fully because if I was to have my time again, I would be avoiding picking him, particularly this high.
Yeah, I feel the same way. He's just had too many injuries over the past few years for me to trust him. He's a great player when he's on the court and he's healthy, but he's already dealing with ankle issues. And that's very concerning. It's something that he's been dealing with for the past few years. Like you said, I don't think we can trust him. He's played 55 games last year and 33 the year before that. And most of his numbers have dropped as a result of all the injuries. So I wouldn't be taking the chance.
Yeah, there's a common theme on this list. There's a lot of guys that are going to struggle with the games played aspect. And, you just got to be mindful looking at per game ranks from last season. forgot to mention hashtag basketball. All of these rankings are from their website, so go check them out. But be mindful of these guys that are going into the season injured and also have a history of injury as well. And finally, another guy that I think is going to struggle with getting the games played, and not so much for injuries, but it's more for the tanking team. And we've seen it over the last 3 or 4 seasons with Jeremy Grant. Yahoo rank of 105, I just don't think he's going to be able to get that value. Perhaps on a per game basis, he gets close to that mark. But in totals, I just don't think he's worthy of that 105.
I think the same thing. And it's actually funny that we mentioned him because in one of the leagues that I'm currently in, we're at pick, I think 140 ish, and he hasn't been drafted yet. And he's not someone that I would take a chance on either.
I think that's appropriate. I don't know if I can do that. Okay, here's one for you. Chris Middleton or Jeremy Grant?
This is tricky. I would probably lean Jeremy Grant just because depending on when your league ends, you could avoid most of the problems down the end of the stretch of the season where he's sitting out a lot of games. But again, there are some injury concerns with Grant as well, but I think that's more so with Middleton. How about you?
It's a great point. Check your league settings as well. See where your playoffs are because that could dictate whether or not you want to take guys like Jeremy Grant. And the best thing for his value would be a trade, and that would be ideal for him. And he probably doesn't ever get back to how good he was for Detroit for most of the season that he was there, or even for OKC as well. But I'm going to avoid Jeremy Grant altogether. Just I cannot trust what Portland are going to do this season.
That's fair.
And finally, we don't have a slide, but we just got word that Kawhi Leonard is going to miss the opening game of the season. He's not on this list just because he does have a Yahoo rank, I think, of 48, which presents some level of value, particularly based on his per game value, based on last season, but over his entire career. And that did present some value. But going into the season injured, going to miss the first game at least, I still have some question marks around Kawhi, even at 48.
Yeah, there's a lot of yellow flags with him. Proceed with caution with drafting. And in every single league that I've done so far, he's been falling extremely far. He's not someone that I picked up in any league, but James Harden, that's the guy to look at right now.
Absolutely. James Harden, we spoke about Ivica Zubac as well. He's had a bit of a dull preseason, but I really, really like Harden. And there's going to be some value as well for some of those other starters, Norman Powell, perhaps even Kevin Porter Jr. But yeah, I digress on that one. All right, Kayla. Beautiful, short, sharp episode today. Do you have any other plans coming up?
Yeah, I'm currently working on positional tiers. So hopefully releasing that sometime this week. And of course, a lot of shows with Between Two Hoops and Bitches Be Balling.
Bitches Be Balling. When do we expect to see that?
Sometime in the next few days. We're planning to record today for a show. So stay tuned for that.
Looking forward to seeing that one. And of course, you can find Kayla on Twitter at Kayla_Fonte. And you can find myself at NBA Fantasy Bible. Make sure you hit us up. Also, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on our social media platforms, our podcast platforms as well. And of course, follow us on Twitter as well for all the latest news. But thank you so much, Kayla. And until next time, see you guys.
See ya.